राइट नाइस।
Right then.
या હું કહેતો હતો કે મેં એક બેઝિકલી એક પેલો એપ લીધો છે જેમાં I can connect my phone camera to my laptop, so I'm technically on the laptop right now, but my phone
So
is
you're looking at the laptop,
yeah, I'm looking at the laptop right.
but you have the phone camera in front of you.
Yeah, so,
Okay, how do you do that? I need to get that app.
I'll do that with Magic. So this is my setup. You won't be able to see everything right now, but
Okay.
અહીંયા મારું બોટલ ને એ છે.
Okay, so you like okay, so how have you like managed to put the phone over there?
Yeah, I have a place here to put my I put things here so that I can place my camera.
Damn,
I
all right.
told you, I have a system, bro. I have to set up a system.
That's like a proper shit, man. I haven't done that at all. This is just
No,
my laptop.
I don't have a webcam. You forget that. I don't have a webcam.
Oh shit, you don't have a webcam. I just forgot, completely forgot.
That's why I'm doing all this. I don't have. So
yeah.
before we start,
Yeah.
what happened to Hamilton?
Oh man, Hamilton.
What just
Oh my
happened?
God.
What just happened? It was so weird. I mean, it's like, why was nobody talking about it? Even the guy, the commentators were saying that smoke is coming out, and then away we go. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Why are they going if it's smoking? What is this?
Of course, like I'm pretty sure most newcomers would have felt like the exact same way when they saw that restart race and the smoke coming out, like so dramatic, right? The entire scene felt so dramatic.
Right?
It was like okay, something is
I think
definitely wrong
it
with
was
the
going
car.
to be like this thing where the newcomers would be like, oh my God, that's so cool that the cars are super heated up right now and smoking.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, is that supposed to happen? That's a weird
Exactly,
thing
yeah.
to happen.
Because I think some of the other cars at the back were also having that smoke.
Yeah,
but
exactly,
it was
right?
like,
Exactly.
so I thought maybe it's normal. Maybe it's just some break.
Like,
There's like
I originally thought it was.
around.
Yeah, I originally thought it was like 3-4 cars together smoking up, and that's why there's a lot of smoke. But then the commentator said that Hamilton's brakes are heating up too much. I was like, what? That's just one car. If one car is smoking that much, then that's bad. And
I think it was ultimately Lewis's fault. He didn't set up like the brake correctly or something. Like something like that happened. Wait, what?
Yeah. So I'm sitting in a room that has lights that turn off automatically if there's no movement. And
okay.
But yeah, I mean, I heard that he didn't turn on the brake switch or something like that. Something like that happened.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe. Whatever. I think his back brakes failed, right? I think that's what happened. Yeah.
I don't know what exactly.
Rear brakes failed, and he just went straight into.
They have like different buttons or pedals or whatever for rear and front brakes. Is that? I don't know.
No, I don't think that's how it works. It's honestly like this is like I don't know enough to be talking about this stuff because it's like so many things are involved. Like anything can happen, right? Because initially, even with the Verstappen crash, I was thinking that like okay, this is definitely some sort of fault from Red Bull, right? Because they did put the tires right or something like that. But everybody in the commentators box as well, and like everybody among my friends were even just saying that okay, it's the tires, the new Pirelli tires, because Lance Stroll also crashed, as you might.
Yeah, even the commentators said right that there's something wrong with the tires. They're too heavy, I think, or something like that. That's what they said.
Exactly. So it was immediately they figured it out, right? And so these are the things where I'm really like learning.
But did they change tires this Grand Prix?
I don't understand how that stuff works. Honestly, I don't know if
I mean, no.
still
if they've been using the same tires. Yeah, I understand. If they're using the same tires for like the past 4 or 5 whatever races have happened,
so there are no problems
then it's weird to have that happen. But like 5 crashes, bro. 5 pre-race crashes. That was just crazy. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So yeah, and immediately it was just like this was like a written script. You know what I mean? Like the top 2 champions were pushed out of the race. This was literally written in a script somewhere.
If you're talking about a written script, then it was probably even a boring script. I mean, in the sense that if there were 51 laps, nothing happened for like the first 25, 30 laps, and then shit just hit the fan in the most colossal way.
That's just like but man, like even in the beginning of the race, I mean, there was like Perez kept Hamilton at his back. He was literally like, holding him back for him to
Oh,
not pass.
yo,
And that
dude,
was
oh
very
my
important
God.
for
Like
Verstappen as well.
the
And he
only
did that
reason
very
Hamilton
well.
was third was because of Perez, not because of Verstappen. That's what I feel.
I mean, Verstappen was just flying through ahead, but the point is that the second driver was able to do that, right? We
Amazing.
had
It
this
was
second driver
great.
first with Red Bull, right? And we can see Perez finally like clicking with the car, and the results are here. And
Exactly.
now it's going to be a real challenge for Mercedes
Like
finally.
Vettel came ahead. Vettel, Gasly, and who the third one? The guy and Perez, right? So because
Yeah,
of that, the standings remain the same. Like Verstappen
exactly.
went out and Hamilton didn't get any points, so it's still
Exactly.
the same standings. You're like, what?
It's just a
What is this?
dramatic race. Yeah, so it's just a dramatic race in of itself, but it doesn't affect the championship as a whole. So it's just like
Like that's what I think that's what made it more dramatic. That it was so,
exactly.
like
That's right.
yeah, after all of this, nothing actually changed. Oh, what is this? Why? This is not fair.
That was like great stuff, man.
Uh,
And like
oh yeah,
F1 has been great, man. I'm just like I'm glad I started watching F1. That's like good
oh
stuff.
yeah, definitely, man, definitely. I
Very
agree.
great stuff. Yeah. All right then, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, what were we talking about the last time we started talking about this? So yeah, I don't know if I should make a disclaimer, but yeah, we were the goal, the topic of this discussion is mainly gonna revolve around, I don't know, investing, but like crypto also, but like all sorts of money related things that are happening in the
Yeah,
market in
pretty
general.
much.
But yeah, so what were we talking about? What was our thing? If you want to start.
Uh, Yeah, so I think we were just on to the fact that like you know how I just like to always analyze like the fundamentals of how something works, and it's just like stocks just felt like something that were inherently the opposite of that because some people said that they were like they were they represented profits that the company made and stuff like that, right? I mean, still it is like it is a shadow of it in the sense that it does change the company. If the company has profit, of course it changes the share price, but it's not directly linked to it, right? It's about the market forces. So the entire idea of that, like I just couldn't tap that into my head. So that's just what I was thinking about. And in general, like I think the conversation started with like cryptocurrency, right? And the shit show that has been going on with Elon Musk,
Oh, man,
Dogecoin and Bitcoin
it's
right now,
it's
it's
just
like
stupid to be honest. But like stock, see, there's this weird thing about stocks as well, right? People are coming to the stock market in huge volumes as well. Going not just to the US stock market, but even the Indian stock market. People are getting more and more aware, and people are interested in investing. I guess that's
yeah,
the right
yeah,
term to use.
exactly.
And people are really interested in this thing, and because of that, the whole thing of 2021, the beginning of 2021 was this entire Reddit meme stock, going up to the
Yeah.
moon and all that shit. But
Oh my
even then, I guess one of the best ways to put it is what happened last week as well with with AMC. Uh, it was basically uh, the stock went up with GameStop as well. It was one of the meme stocks. But last week specifically, what happened is with the stock price doubled again, right? So I think it's at 80 or something
Which
like that
means
right now.
like about right now or when are you talking about?
Well, so that's like last week. So starting, so this was this Monday, right? So the price went up to twice the original price by over the course of Monday to Friday last week. That's 7 days ago to today, around that time.
Is it?
So,
Yeah, I thought it was like sort of fluctuating up and down by like 10, thirteen
no, no, no.
percent in
So
a
yeah, so actually what happened
it was
is
pretty
it went up
yeah.
again, and what happened was there was this entire trend of how we want to support AMC and all that, just like GameStop, the whole meme stocks thing, but also that uh, AMC sold a lot of its shares, and that would have triggered a price drop like as much as 30. The price actually did even drop. It dropped by like 30%, right? But
Right.
even then, the price ended up being twice the price of like 2 weeks ago. And the thing is, it ended up having. So my point here is that it ended up having like 80% retail investors and 20% like corporation based investors, right? And that's really just the general trend I'm talking about, that usually big price changes before 2021 has always been about corporations buying and selling stocks en masse, right? But now it's been people together changing the stock prices by a huge amount, right?
This is the first time we could see, a very intentful, manipulation of a stock, like from
Exactly.
the masses being together. That's something we're witnessing for the first time. And technically, like in a way, we would know it would happen at some time, because now, because of course of the internet, we know that there is an exchange among people, right? So we can actually see communities that are large enough and are determined enough would naturally do that at some point, but we hadn't seen it until now, and we can see the power that the individual investor now has just because
Exactly.
of the connectivity, right?
Yeah, I mean, but it's a bit weird, right? Because as we talked about last week, I'll just put it here, but the fact that the stock price itself is not directly attached to the money that
Yeah,
that the company
it's
gets
supposed to
to
happen that
run
way.
its
Yeah,
operations, right? And that
yeah,
is why I also again I refer to the AMC stock, because they sold these many stocks. Like, I don't remember the exact number, but it was a huge volume of stocks. I think it was in the order of millions of dollars. I think couple millions of dollars. I think, I'm not sure, but it was a huge
right.
amount. And the point is that because of that, they could in fact, you know, raise the money that they wanted to, right? So the idea is that if the stock price increases, then the company's value increases, but the value is not directly attached to the company actually using that money unless they sell that stock. And that's exactly what AMC did.
Exactly.
So they're taking
Yeah,
advantage of the situation that is being presented by retail investors. Like, they're trying to, you know, they're trying to raise money from that stock, and then once the stock price goes down, they'll buy it again and
yeah.
keep the ownership with them.
That's Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's just about, like, I personally, in general, don't believe in the idea of, day-to-day trading and investing in that sense. It doesn't actually make a lot of sense in the long term. Of course, it's like you can pretty much compare it to gambling, right? That's what people say. Day trading is like gambling. That's pretty much what it is, right? But I mean, it is an evil in itself. But apart from that, the thing is, like, if that is indeed happening, then at least make sure not only the rich people get to do that, right? Like, somehow it should be possible. I mean, if you're gonna do it, you're gonna have to have it. You can't have it both ways, basically, right? If you're gonna
Yeah.
do it, then you need to allow everybody else to have such a thing as well. That's just simply how it is. So that's just great. But like in general, I just kind of just don't like the idea of day trading. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah, I mean,
like,
so okay, I read this article a couple of days back. I was, looking for like technical terms that people use and how things happen. So I read that there are like four kinds of trading strategies. I think it's like a common article. So if you just Google stock trading strategies, I think you'll get like the top 5 results. So it's not that
okay,
hard of a find. I guess link
okay,
I'll put in the description or whatever. I don't know, but
sure.
the article said that there are like four strategies of trading. So first was the day trading that you hate, and I probably hate as much as you do, because
Yeah,
I don't like the point of how volatile a stock gets on a daily basis, and I
yeah,
guess that's why Tesla is one of the worst stocks in that. Uh, I guess
yeah.
Reliance is also a bad stock in India that way, but Reliance tends to go upward, but it never tends to go down for some reason. I don't know why that
Right.
is. It's a
It is
very
like
weird stock.
extremely fishy. I don't know how it works,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
it sounds
it's a
very fishy.
really weird thing. I mean, see, I've read enough about the company to know what kind of things they pull in the market or in politics and all sorts of things. But in the end, it's a very weird thing to have a stock just keep growing. Like, what is this? And it's growing so fast. That's the weird thing to have. But anyway, coming back to the point, like, there are like four strategies. The first one is day trading, as I said, and I don't like it that much. Second is like position trading, where you call it. I think it's a day to week thing. So like you pick a particular position and you stick to that position for like 1 or 2 weeks. Usually that's
Okay.
the time frame, and you want to get in on the action. So I guess one of the ways I'm doing that is kind of with General Motors, but in a slightly more, a longer term investing. So that's the third one. That's what they call swing trading, right? And swing trading is a bit of what I'm doing. So I like what General Motors is doing. They were one of the first people to say that we're gonna move to completely electric cars by
Yeah.
2030. I think yes, and a lot of companies joined suit, but I feel that not enough companies joined suit. Right? We've been
Yeah.
proponents of fixing climate change, and we know how all these things, how electric cars and electricity and energy distribution all fits into it. We're not going to talk about it that much, but in the end, the point is that electric cars are really useful, and I feel that personally, General Motors is doing a great job at in going in that direction, right?
Exactly.
And with that, I've bought like a couple of stocks. I think one or two stocks I have right now, and they've been growing amazingly well. And that's really the idea, that's swing trading. And then long term investing is what GK Dada did. So what he did was he would just buy the stock, keep it for like 3-4 years or something, and then he'll just sell it. And because of that, he will just buy blue chip stocks, and he would just like, I guess he had like these couple of companies. So he had Infosys, he had TCS, he had Reliance,
Right.
and I guess a couple more companies. But in the end, the idea was that he would only buy blue chip stocks, and he would consider long term investing as a thing. It's basically parking all your extra money uh, until you need it, and when you do, you realize you probably have like 20-30% more than you parked it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
that
that's
makes sense.
really
I mean,
kind of
that's a pretty like simple way to think about it. And to be honest, like in the sense of actually adding any sort of real value to the world, I think, I mean, it's pretty straightforward saying that, of course,
yeah,
day
exactly.
trading, if you're doing day trading, like the value of a company cannot degrade in a day. That's just simply now not how it works, right? Except
Exactly.
I guess maybe special cases which are like
But no,
very funny.
but it the thing is, it does. That's the
Exactly.
problem. Because of the mentality of day trading, the value does degrade in a day, and that's the worst
Exactly.
part.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's just us in a way allowing companies to be, vulnerable to such sort of market forces, which,
Hmm.
if you think about it, shouldn't actually exist in the first place, right? So that's just how
No,
it
I
is.
agree. I
And
completely
I think
agree.
like this is exactly what I read about, right? So because like I've just started reading about stocks, and like I just wanted to know how are stock prices even determined, right? So like all those sorts of things, and like of course it's just about demand and supply, right? So for example, if I think the company is gonna do good, that naturally means that I think that the stock price is gonna go up, which means that I will, agree to buy the stock right now at a higher price, right? So at enough of a higher price such that a person already owning a stock right now is willing to sell, and that's just the demand and supply
That's,
part of it, right? It's a very simple thing
I
about it.
mean, yeah.
Now
So
that's
that's. I mean, so yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. If you have something.
Yeah, exactly. So the simple thing is that like how do we know a company, if a company is gonna succeed? So there are like various factors that are involved in that, right? So there is like industry growth, and like there are things that are already happening in the market. For example, if we know that there's gonna be an increase in like homes, like Indian homes, because we know that in general the trend is that there is an urbanization going on. So naturally we know that companies that are focused around materials of building houses and stuff like that, they're naturally going to go up. So that is not about the company, but it's about what the company is doing and the market availability for that, right? So those sorts of things are one of the things that influences, and like things like that, right? So in that sense, what I have to say about that is that right now people should really invest in green technologies, because not only because of the fact that okay, now people are actually going to push for it as well, which is the people side of the equation, what people think about the industry and things like that. Because as you know, there are like right now it's pretty much 50-50, right? What's actually going to happen to the industry and what people think are going to happen is what's going to
Yeah,
happen about the industry. Those
they
both
just
of these
goes
are,
together. They just go together.
it
Yeah.
has to go together. So it's like both of them are equally important, right? But naturally the thing is, even if in like 10 years the majority of governments and companies don't go in that direction, like science says that in at least 20 to 30 years naturally you're gonna have to shift to greener technology, or we're gonna have like trillions and trillions of dollars of losses. It's just very simple in terms of, it's just mathematics, right? So this is something that is just, you know what's going to happen to it, right? If you just read the science of it. Like if you just read the public discourse, there is still people who are like, okay, something may happen or something may not happen in that way, right? Like some people do deny climate change, which is just messed up at this point. But all those sort of things, public perception is way less certain about whether green technologies are going to succeed. But the science itself and what we know about the industry itself tells us that definitely, if not in even the near future of say 10 years, in 20 to 30 years, it's definitely going to succeed, which means that like you should find jobs that focus on green energies. You should make businesses which do that. And if nothing, then you should definitely invest in stocks that are of companies which are thinking about green technologies, because naturally it's just gonna happen, So that's just my.
I mean, yeah, I agree. And I've talked about this before, but I'm also at this kind of crossroads where I'm also looking for a job, but I'm also running a startup. But and
Exactly.
if I end up doing one of them or even both of them, then I'll have money and I'll be able to use that money to invest as well. So I'm in this place where I can start doing exactly what you're just saying that we should do. And I feel I have 2 points on what you just said. First is about the talking about green technologies in general. I feel so there's this interesting thing about what we were thinking, right? So I guess let's go back a decade or maybe like 8, 7, 8 years, where people in general started talking about pollution being bad and climate change specifically. That how pollution is leading to climate change, irreversible climate change, things like that, right?
Yeah.
And I feel one of the first things that we were thinking about back then and what was being talked about back then was the fact that we did not think of anything other than actual pollution, like for transportation, be it
Exactly.
transportation of
We are
factories
thinking
or
just
things
in
like that, right?
terms of like plastic bags and
Exactly. So it's like
garbage.
everything leads to climate change. It's such a complex problem that we can't even talk about
Exactly.
it. But
Yeah.
the fact that the only visible things was like waste management, like plastic and that thing, and the other was like pollution, like actual air pollution, air and water pollution.
Yeah.
That
Exactly.
made everyone think that this is the most urgent thing that needs to be solved, and not more less obvious things like even meat production or all kinds of other things like
Exactly. Yeah.
factories and everything, right?
Things that are
But
less intuitive, to
yeah,
us.
exactly.
Yeah.
And what I'm really getting it at is the fact that these actually ended up being the first companies that talked about climate change in a serious way on an international level. So automotive companies and transportation companies in general have now started talking about setting a clear goal, right? That if it's, let's say, automotive companies, then they want to create green energy only alternatives. Or if it's factories, and factories are looking at using clean energy more and more, like be it solar or wind or something like that, right? And we had countless discussions on what is the best way. Okay, give me just a second, sorry. Yep, back. Yeah, so I mean, we still don't have a perfect idea of whether one of which of the clean energies will be the best way for us to
Yeah.
move forward, and so we use
Yeah.
an amalgamation of all of them together. But that's the idea, that I think we're going in this, like, if not a 10-year, then at least like an 8-year delay, where if we have realized that non-obvious things like
Meat production.
waste management
Like
or
food
meat
production or meat
production,
production, stuff like that.
exactly,
Yeah.
things, if things like that are also affecting the climate and we've just understood it the last couple of years, it's still gonna take more than a decade, like around a decade, not more than a decade. It's going to take a decade for complete, for not just companies, but also people in general to be serious about these things. So even
Exactly.
though the companies like Beyond and Impossible are making foods, Mark Rober is making videos with Bill Gates, and, big people are talking
Yeah.
about it, but it's still
Exactly.
not mainstream in an actionable way. So people just keep
Exactly.
talking about it, but nothing really actually happens with it, right? And I
Yeah.
feel I am in that direction where if I do want to eat meat outside, I'll prefer eating an Impossible Burger or a Beyond Burger, even though even though it might not taste as good, I don't know. But
Yeah.
the idea is that this is me voicing my opinion to the restaurant and hence to the Impossible company, that there is
Yeah.
demand for products like these.
Exactly.
There is
That's the
demand
message,
for
right?
this.
You're
So
giving a message to the industry that you want products like these, right?
exactly. So that's
That's when the
the
research and stuff will go actually behind making these things cheaper and better in terms of quality, right? For example,
exactly.
if you just think about like air conditioners, right? Then like we know that a certain certain kinds of air conditioner appliances emit CFC. Some of the older versions emit a lot of CFC, right? Which is directly a very potent greenhouse gas. So
Mhm.
simply the thing is like we know, I mean, I'm pretty sure if we actually invest in the technology, then we'll get air conditioners which don't emit CFCs at all, right? But the thing is, for that we need to start paying for ACs that cost a bit more maybe, but actually give us are greener. So that's what will send the actual message to the companies and the industry in general, which will naturally take them in that direction, right? Because the company does what the people wants. That's just how it is, right?
Exactly.
So one of the best ways for a consumer to actually promote, I mean, contribute to climate change is just use products not only because of the products, decreasing emissions themselves, but also about the message you're sending to the industry,
Extending
and
to the
that leads
exactly.
to yeah, that's
Exactly.
the crucial point that we
No, I
need to understand.
completely agree with that, man. And that's exactly the point, right? I mean, even with the going slightly off gear, but even with Elon Musk's discussion about how Bitcoin miners are not using clean energy, and that's why he won't invest in it. And then he might have all sorts of ulterior motives about him,
Yeah,
using an unregulated market and all that. But I feel it's still an important problem that he brought up, that crypto is not as simple as a basic, as a I think Smith used this word, fiat currency, right? So that's basically
right.
a
Yeah,
currency
yeah,
that is used,
yeah,
that's paper, like actual currency that does not have value associated outside itself. So USA did it like, I think 100 years ago or something like that. I think they did it pre-World War or post-World War. Around that time,
right.
they basically disattached the currency
Value.
from gold, right?
Yeah,
So
basically
they
any
had
sort of value story. Basically,
exactly
you could
exactly.
attach.
It was always connected to gold, and they disattached it from that, and they said that the US dollar is gonna be move on its own now. It won't have any kind of attachment to any real thing. So that's what fiat currency is, right? And that's how crypto is different from currency like this. So even if Bitcoin or Ethereum or Dogecoin or whatever, all of these cryptos, even if they're not attached directly to any particular product in the real world, because of
Exactly.
what they do, how they operate, they have their own value. And
That
that's
itself has value. Exactly.
exactly, and that is what will change the value. So if Bitcoin has if Bitcoin is popular, it's gonna go up in price. It's just like Nike, or
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
or like Supreme or something like that.
Yeah.
It's expensive because it's popular, and it's popular because it's expensive, and it'll just keep going, right? But if
Yeah. It's
if one day someone popular says that this cryptocurrency is not good because it attributes to a
climate change. Or maybe what
bad
you said.
energy production, yeah, bad
Yeah.
energy distribution and usage, then the price will go down. And
Exactly.
that's really the idea, right? That if even if that is the case, there's this entire concept. So I'll just I don't know if I should go into a bit of detail into it, but technically speaking, cryptocurrency is basically like a decentralized ledger system, right? So it's
Okay.
basically uh, every blockchain, like let's just consider Bitcoin for now. So if
Yeah.
Bitcoin is basically a chain of blocks, hence right?
Yeah.
So like each block contains a set of transactions, right? So it's basically like I don't know, I don't think you will be using it, but we here use Splitwise. So we basically use it to record our transactions with each other. So if I paid for a restaurant one day and some other guy went to the groceries tomorrow and bought groceries for us, then we'll just put it in Splitwise, and Splitwise will do all the work for us. So for us to know, right? And that's essentially the idea, that it's a ledger system where you record each transaction, and each block is connected to the other, and it's decentralized in a way that you have a key associated to every block, which will basically be an authentication, in the sense that this is the right block to go at the end of the chain, right? So
that's just basically blockchain.
yeah, so exactly. So blockchain mining, be it Bitcoin or Ethereum, mining for that blockchain is basically processing that key. It's basically a unique key that you have to find, which is based on encryption. It cannot be reverse engineered, so you can so it's encrypted in such a way that you cannot you can't find an inverse function. The function only goes forward, right?
It goes one way,
so you have to calculate the key manually, throughout, and that's why you need GPUs, because GPUs are good at mathematics, right? That's the idea. So I mean, I know I'm going through a lot of things right now, but on the top level, this is the idea, that it's a decentralized ledger, right? And now the idea becomes, the problem with mining is that if we have 10 systems mining for a particular key, now a blockchain is just that. It's a chain. It's a linear chain, right? So every block would come after the other. And if the block, if each block has its own key, so if 10 computers are finding a key for a block, then they're essentially fighting for that key, right? And if one of the 10 machines finds that key, then the other 9 machines have wasted all their energy trying to find that key. Right? So they wasted all this energy trying to find the key, and now they have to start working again. And this is actually incentivized in this current model. So it's called the proof of work model, where so if I have 10 systems, and like system 1 and system 3 both say that, okay, this is the block that you should add, and they're different blocks in the end, right? Because the key is different. So which key should I accept? Only one of the keys is right. Then you basically put trust on the person, or essentially the machine that has done the most work. That's the proof of work. So because I have done a lot of work in the past, that's why I feel that I should be, that my machine should be taken to essentially my block should be taken in the blockchain, essentially, right? And the problem with that is basically incentivizing you to collect like tens of thousands of GPUs together, make a mining server, so that you can hit all the keys that you want, right? And so Bitcoin and Ethereum are gonna transfer to this new model called proof of stake. So you basically become a stakeholder in that blockchain. So if your block turns out to be a fake block, or a tampered or a fraudulent block, then you essentially what happens is, when you generate the key, you put all the Ethereum or blockchain that you have mined as stake. So you put it at stake, that this is the collateral for me me generating this key. If this key turns out to be fraudulent, you can take away all of this Ethereum or blockchain or Bitcoin. Sorry.
Bitcoin,
right? So that's essentially the idea, that they're moving on to a proof of stake model. Yeah, exactly, right. And there's also another problem with that if it's a what do you call, proof of stake, then there are very high chances that people with a lot of Bitcoin or a lot of Ethereum can move the blockchain in their own direction and create their own fraudulent transactions. But the idea is that what we've settled on as as humankind, for lack of a better word right now, for what you settled on right now, is that we should start with proof of work, because there's not a lot of machines working on the blockchain. And once the blockchain matures, so that there's a lot of work done in the blockchain already, you should shift to proof of stake, where, because the system is decentralized enough, there's no way, I mean, the chances are very low of people making a centralized system out of a already decentralized currency, basically.
That's so that's like the sort of thing, right? Because for cryptocurrency, most people are just looking at it as a stock, right? But like really, if you're gonna invest into it, you should really understand how it works on a technical level. Only then will you actually be able to believe in its benefits, right? People say that it has like like secure transactions and quicker transactions through the internet, right? That's the selling point of cryptocurrency. Why do we need this extra currency for no reason, right? So these are the reasons that exist, and you would not properly understand what these reasons are to be able to invest in it before you understand the technology for it, right? So the simple reason is like the way you said it, right? Because like I think there's a lot of things that you pretty much like just glanced upon about like how blockchain works and how like the key encryption works. I think anybody that wants to invest in cryptocurrency, please understand how this works, like from any sort of source, like from YouTube or anywhere you find
I mean,
pretty
I
good
guess
videos.
I'll also put a couple of show notes, that people usually put in podcasts. I guess I'll put a lot of links, as much links as I can. All the
Exactly.
videos
You're just
I've done.
gonna reference as much as possible. That's one thing that's gonna
Yeah,
happen here.
but I mean,
So,
that's really what it is, right? I mean, that's a weird thing about creating content. I don't know. I'm just shifting gears for like 5 minutes.
No, that's just a
But,
tangent. Yeah.
like just for 5 minutes, I'm going to shift gears completely. But there's this weird thing about creating content like this. So if you're going to talk about things that people should know more about, you start talking with each other. And because I mean, we already have history with each other, some things, I know some things, and the two of us know what the other one
What
knows,
the other?
right?
Yeah. What
So
the other?
we just jump over all the assumptions and we keep moving forward. But the problem with that is there's a lot of content that goes beneath, and there's a lot of assumptions that we ourselves make that may be wrong, and we need to correct them. But also, more importantly, there's a lot of things that I have read, there's a lot of things that you have read, on top of which we are discussing, right?
Exactly.
And so it becomes like this dilemma where you should watch, should people watch our content, or should people read the things that we have read and make their own conclusions? I
Exactly.
mean, I don't know what we should do.
Yeah,
But
so
it's
that's pretty much exactly because the thing we're doing is we're discussing, but it's pretty much, it feels like an imposter syndrome, right? Because we're feeling like, okay, maybe we're talking about things that other people have already talked about, and like maybe we're just stealing from them instead of just actually
what's the imposter syndrome? What's the imposter syndrome? I don't know what that is.
That's pretty much it. Like whatever that you do or contribute to, like whatever you create, you feel like you've stolen because you heard of the idea somewhere else and from which you derived the information,
I
right?
see.
So that's basically the imposter syndrome, and I think like pretty much everybody would know about that term. But
Right.
so that's like the sort of thing that you feel, right? Every time that you're making content, I think that's one of the big hurdles that you have to overcome. So it's like the best way to do it is just speak your thoughts and then link to as much stuff as possible that you think you may have derived this information from. And the thing is that there have been so many sources, right? We like read articles, and predominantly a lot of knowledge I've gained from YouTube, and that's just been like a very big source for me, and I think for both of us, so in just in
that's
that
a whole
way.
other tangent, if YouTube should be a good source or not. But
That's another thing we can talk about that, right? There's too many things out here to fit in one podcast, right?
As Gray likes to put it, maybe we'll talk about it in another podcast. As Gray likes to put it,
pretty much, so that's just what it is. So like all those, and it just feels really great to actually source all these people, because you just know you want their word to spread, right? All these people you derive their information from, like you just want their word to spread, so it just feels good when you are linking them as well. So I think that's something that you want to make sure for the podcast.
You felt good that you were inspired by those people, and that's why the people hold value in your life. But then when you actually do tell other people in a very constructive way to to go through their content, it also feels good, because you're going a step further, right? That you're taking the conversation ahead. So if the person talks about crypto for like, I don't know, three blue and brown, like Grant Sanderson talked about it for like 30 minutes, then I built on top of it. and I mean, we sent the conversation forward, and then there's someone else that watches our podcast, listens to our podcast, whatever, and I don't know, they takes it again forward.
3 seconds forward, and that's just what we would love for to make happen is adding some sort of value from this entire network, right? So it's just a good sort of networking strategy. So
I guess
basically,
going back to this, this is a very good decentralized way to gather knowledge. That it's a decentralized knowledge system. I mean, I guess Reddit and Wikipedia and things like these do that a lot on their own. But this is a very live organism. It's like the meme thing that Gray talks about, right? That the meme exists, it spreads, but it dies if it's not mutated. So a mutation will keep the meme going forward, and in the same way, if there's an important, it's not just knowledge that needs to go forward, right? If it's just facts that you're talking about, then it's not going to be fun. I feel that if there are opinions that you put on top of it, then the things will mutate. It'll take its own shape and will keep going forward. So because of us, I think we put cryptocurrency in a very technical standpoint, that we just talked about crypto as a tech, and we didn't talk about the role of Robinhood or the role of Elon Musk or the role of I don't know, Dogecoin on it, right? But I think people can put it on top and people can go ahead. But
like also going into more like abstract terms, basically it's that, like, decentralize all things, you know what I mean? Because like our intuition is that decentralization is just not good, because you cannot take decisions quickly and things cannot happen in a clear manner. It's much more complicated going in from the very start, right? But if done right, decentralization can provide value that you like just cannot imagine, right? Because things like currencies, right? Currencies, if you decentralize a currency, that's Bitcoin, right? That's one of the main points of cryptocurrency, right? That's basically you decentralize the currency. So, for example, if you talk about any normal currency that you're using, even in your country, right? Then it is always associated to your government and the economy of the country, right? But if the economy of the country drops, then that means that your currency is gonna go away as well. So in that way, it's still for the even for the country, the currency is as decentralized as possible, right? But it's still local and confined, so it's still centralized in that way, right? And once
so, I mean,
that drops,
the economic crisis of 2007-8 is just calling at your doorstep right now, talking
pretty
about
much, and like exactly. It's like
so
even the economy of Greece and Venezuela, right? All these countries where happened.
So Greece and Venezuela are very confined economies where what happened didn't move out, and that's why the problem of centralized currency exists. And the opposite was true for the US dollar in the 7-8 crisis, where you talked about once the currency of the US dollar dropped, so many countries were dependent on the US dollar that even their own currency dropped, ranging all the way from, like, I don't know, Europe to China to freaking India as well, everything. So I mean, that's really the end point, right? That crypto has this value in being decentralized, but there are still problems with decentralization. So you have to figure the pros and cons.
It's always a trade-off, right? It's always a trade-off between things, but you definitely need to consider all of them, right? So that's just like decentralization. Like pretty much, I think the concept of decentralization, if made right, there are quite a lot of benefits that you can have. Like I'm pretty sure, like everywhere people are like, okay, governments and political parties aren't doing the right thing and things like that. Basically, political systems or many different sort of systems where we can see these obvious failures coming out now, right? Where, of course, at one point you would think, okay, this democracy is pretty much perfect and it'll just, because everyone's voices will be heard. But then you realize, okay, how, where power is concentrated and what that does to, manipulation for the public and things like that. So naturally, you start to understand all these problems that it has. And like, I think a good decentralized system would really help us in governments as well. But that's probably a very controversial thought and also a very important thought that we'll again discuss sometime later, probably another podcast. But
but I mean, so that's what it is. So I was talking about this with a friend as well, right? I guess I'll move. I think we're killing off all the side notes that we went into and coming back up. But there's one last thing I wanted to talk about currency. I was talking with a friend, and we said that we had a, there's this important thing that was lost due to this whole COVID thing, that in 2020 everyone started talking about COVID, and it's still the thing being talked about, not just on a personal level but also on a political, on an economic level and everything, right? COVID has taken over everything. So there's this pre-COVID important event that was occurring, that was the US-China trade war, right? And there was an important thing that I guess I read about it. I don't know how obvious that was to people, but what I'm really talking about is that the US and China currency systems were very closely linked. So the implicit deal that they had was that US would US would essentially have all its manufacturing done in China, and China would in turn keep their currency value low, so it will keep it cheaper, right? So there was this entire cycle where the US could invest money into China, and China would do manufacturing and send the products to US, and it would be like a two-way thing that they work together with, right? And yeah, I mean that's essentially the idea, that because there were tensions between US and China, what they did was they essentially killed off they started killing off the trade routes, not the trade routes, but like the trade pipelines, in a way, like metaphorical pipelines, where they blocked off a couple of products. Then China said that, okay, we'll block these products. Then US said that we block these, and it was actually cascading before we went to the COVID scenario. And of course, why COVID happened, or, who caused COVID, that's a completely different discussion. But in the end, what happened was that US and China were going into a trade war that led to the essentially killing off of this implicit deal, where there was a connected currency. The currency was not connected in a very direct way, because their economies were so closely linked together. Because of that,
how manufacturing is fundamentally been,
exactly
given to China at this point, right? So
exactly.
it's very interlinked with the US's economy.
Yeah. So by the way, there's also this. So okay, India has this whole thing of Atmanirbhar Bharat, right? In 2020, that Modi released. It's also becoming a thing in the US, where people are talking. People are taking pride in the fact that a thing is American made.
It's been made.
Yeah. Right. So that's the entire thing, that people are now moving to a more national economy than having an international economy. And they've seen. So I guess it's this thing where US China had good relations, then they started having tensions, and COVID essentially broke that link. And China went in their own way, in their own direction for the economy, and US went in their own way. And the economy is as separate as they can be right now, right? So I guess that's why I'm really bringing this example, is because I feel this is I guess one of the problems that crypto should be able to solve. That if there's a single event or a single relationship that's that is bringing a currency down, then a crypto would be the exact opposite of that. That a single event would not lead to a single national event, or a single political event would not lead to such changes. But the problem with that is, right now, because they're so young, I guess that's the word to put it. Because they're so young, they have their own volatile events, like Elon Musk talking about it again for the 100th time. Elon Musk saying something, moving the prices up and down like anything, right? And yeah, I mean, in the end,
right? We still need to think about it in more fundamental terms. That's just how I would like to put it, because it's actually an entire currency, right? So we need to make sure we don't put Bitcoin's price in the hands of market forces, right? We need to make sure at least of this one thing, because
so okay, that's a good segue into finishing off this side note as well, and coming another level up about investing that we were talking about. I use this word in our last discussion, that if we're talking about investments, think of everything that you invest in as a product, right? And
Yeah.
see,
That's a great.
this logic is why, this logic is why I still can't understand investing in currencies. But let me just describe what I mean by an investment product. So a
Yeah.
product has its own value. It has its, but a product might have its own value, but there's also external value, things like supply and demand,
Yeah.
the companies making that product and things like that. So I guess the closest example I can find is GPUs right now. So there's a lot of semiconductor shortage, right, that's going
Yeah.
on right now.
Exactly. Right now.
So
Yeah.
Intel, AMD, Nvidia, they're all suffering from it the most, but there are also companies like automotive companies like GM and freaking like everyone that's been affected due to semiconductor
Great.
shortage, right?
Yeah.
So Nvidia comes up and makes this series of GPUs that are made only for mining, and the non-mining GPUs have a reduced hash rate. So that's basically the calculations that they do. So because of
Yeah.
that, it's not viable to mine on those GPUs. But then, I mean, there's this whole technicality where it's almost impossible, but it's still not completely impossible. So
Yeah.
what ends up happening is that the prices of GPU changes a lot based on the events that happen, right? Because of this GPU
Yeah.
short, so GPUs were experiencing a shortage due to cryptocurrency miners, right? That's why GPU scalpers became this whole thing. But now it has turned into a long-term thing where semiconductors are in a shortage in
Yeah.
general.
Don't. Yeah.
So it's become
That's like a much more fundamental problem, right?
exactly.
That's like
So and it's a very long-term problem because it's a fundamental problem. It's a very long-term problem that
it's not
will
problem.
take
Yeah.
that'll take
Yeah.
years, if not months if not years to solve,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
And yeah, that's exactly the point, that because of that the GPU and CPU prices are skyrocketing a lot. I mean, CPU is still not going that high, but GPU prices are still
CPUs
very
are just disappearing.
high, right?
Yeah. Pretty
And
much.
that's the idea, that if your product has its own value, but it's also attached to its supply and demand. That's where I'll move on to the investment products, that may be stock market, that may be real estate, that may be crypto, that
Right.
may be
Yeah.
anything, right? Then maybe gold or silver as well, right? They are all commodities. It's easier to attach your value to gold, oil, silver than to stocks, but in the end it's just that day trading literally works on the logic of it being an investment product where I set a price and you set a price, and if both our price match, we make a transaction. That is why I feel I still don't understand completely. Not I'm not saying that I don't understand at all, but I don't completely understand the idea behind investing in currencies, and on top of that,
On
cryptocurrencies, because
like,
currencies I
I
feel are attached to an economy. So if let's say I want to invest in the US economy, I would buy the US dollar
that's a
and then sell it
that's a
five
very
years later
straightforward
to get a
way of
profit.
thinking. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
That's a
then it's a
straightforward.
weird thing that am I betting for US or am I betting against the Indian economy? What is exactly happening here, right? Because if Indian currency value will also inflate on its own, US
I think. Yeah.
currency will also inflate on its own. So there's always this sense of inflation, but who will inflate less? I guess that's what you have to aim for. But then it's a bit weird because of that. I feel
So
cryptocurrency
it's a
has at least. Sorry, I'll just have one.
yeah.
I'll just have one more point. It's that I guess for crypto, there's still a bit of things, like there's a technology behind it, there's the strategy behind what kind of blockchain is made, what's the calculation, all of it, right? I guess that is the intrinsic value behind the currency. But other than that, I really don't understand how I would invest in a
Yeah, I
currency.
think it's just
What
a
is the logic?
yeah. I to be honest, I don't even know how the proper fundamentals of stocks themselves. But like so, I don't know how much of this things that I'm gonna say right now are true. But
Mhm.
what I think about currencies is that currency is not just for an investment, right? Because when we think about cryptocurrency, like the people's perception is that we're thinking about an investment, right? But
Mhm.
it is actually a currency, right? So, for example, if you are actually, let's say, if you're gonna have a trip in the US and you buy some dollar, you buy some dollars for that from your Indian money, right? So those dollars, you aren't investing in the US economy. All you're doing is
Exactly.
taking that money so you can do transactions in the US. That it's very simple, right?
Exactly.
So for any sort of person who's going into cryptocurrency, you have to first make sure what you're doing, right? If you are there for investing, then you need to make sure that, in general, the system needs to make sure that the investing portion is less than the transactions that are involved for the investing are less than the amount of transactions that are involved for actual transactions. Like, for example, if you are in the US and I am in India right now, which is the case, right? And if I have some Bitcoin and you want to sell me something, right? Then instead of me converting my Indian rupee through the US dollar somehow and giving the money to you through a bank or however those systems work, I'm just gonna give you the Bitcoins, right? So those are the transactions, and that's why the value of the currency exists, because people actually want to make transactions cross country in a smoother way, right? And in a secure way that is independent from government banks and things like that. So that's something. So like the first point, as you mentioned, is that people need to think about cryptocurrency as a currency, right? And then on top of that, what I'm trying to say is that you need to think actually about it not as stocks and as currency, which means that the investing portion exists, but its purpose is transaction, which is its purpose is in being a currency, hence the word cryptocurrency.
I mean,
not an investment. Fundamentally, it's not an investment, it's transactions, right? That's something that every person who is going into crypto needs to understand, because even around me, some of my friends have started looking into cryptos largely because of the memes, obviously, largely because of the huge price of Dogecoin, which we know the reason for pretty much. And if you don't know, by the way, then I don't know what rock you're living under. It's like, Elon did some pretty messed up shit, but so
please
here
get
we
out
are,
of your basement.
Yeah, so that's just the only thing that even in terms of awareness, we've seen people just getting into there for getting in it for the investment purposes, and that's a vital information that everybody needs to know. That's how
that's true. And I think I didn't I never thought about it in this direction. That I know the word cryptocurrency has the word currency in it. I know that.
Exactly.
But I'll admit that even I did not look at it in this direction. But I still would like to play the devil's advocate and say that while it may be slightly true that you should think of it as currency and not as stocks, I feel that this is it's like an orthogonal direction in investing. It's not really connected to currency, but in a way, it's perpendicular to the currency investment, but it's also perpendicular to the to the stock market. And I guess I don't know. It's a vector in. I don't know if it's a vector in that 2D space or if it's a 3D vector. I know I'm really going in these mathematical terms right now.
I think we need to make sure for the viewers in what terms we talk about, right? We're talking not in actual terms, we're just talking analogously. Just make sure it's not actually a vector.
I know. So what I really I'm saying is, I don't know if so I consider the stock market and the currency market as two things that are not at least not directly connected to each other. They might be indirectly, but they're not directly connected in any.
There's no different purposes. They are different things to any.
They're two different markets, like altogether. They're
different things. Yes,
right. So I don't know if crypto is cryptocurrencies are somewhere in between these two markets, or is it a completely different market that does it need to be a different market, or does it need to be between these two things? I don't know.
I'll tell you. So the thing is, it is kind of in the middle of these things, right? Because of course we know that it's a currency, right? But the main but the thing right now is that cryptocurrency is very young. It is it's just in terms of like, if you think of a company or a stock, 10 years is okay. Let's say it's a it's a pretty respectable, maybe not that much, but to an amount, a pretty good amount of time, right? But for a currency, think about it just as a currency. It is very young, right? 10 years is nothing for a currency.
Of
Currency
course. Yeah.
means that you're gonna have exchanges for a long period of time, and if you're not gonna do that, then the exchanges don't mean as much, right? So naturally, 10 years is a very short time for any sort of currency, and hence cryptocurrency. So what we need to think is, the idea is that cryptocurrencies are, right now they are an investment. They are fundamentally a currency, but right now they are an investment because its potential is slowly being realized in the world, right?
Interesting. So
And that's
until
why
the potential
currently,
is until it becomes a mature currency, it's an investment into that mature currency.
exactly, that's
Is that what you're
exactly.
saying? Huh.
That's
Interesting.
actually, I'm pretty sure if I'm getting this right, that's exactly what it is, right? So
I mean, I
it
guess
could,
in a more yeah.
you can think about, if you're just gonna keep your buy a Bitcoin for say 1 year and then you're gonna sell it or something, then of course it's not a currency for you, right? It's an investment for you. And even right now, a lot of people are actually doing that, right? And people are thinking about it as investments. But for people who are going for the long term, for the larger number of years, they know the value for it, which is that it's not actually a stock to be sold in the next year. It's something to be kept, for which will be useful for transactions later on, and for that the value is coming into the currency right now. And that's the thing you have to understand. Like, it's a currency, but right now it's an investment because it is young. That is the line that needs to
I think that's a good thing. It's transitioning from an investment to a currency.
yeah,
I guess
yeah.
any currency is also an investment. Let's just
No, yeah,
put that
I guess you
disclaimer.
can say any currency could be an investment because it's linkage to the economy. But uh, it's a currency, but it's an investment right now because it is a young currency.
Yeah,
That
got
is
it.
set.
I see your point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know if I should call it right, if this is right or wrong. I don't want to call it whether if it's right or wrong, because I feel that this is such a fundamental thing that I think that is exactly what is gonna end up happening. I mean, I don't know uh, if the currency's value will go up or down, but I know that crypto will mature itself in the future, right? That any kind of technology matures in the future, right? Be it the internet, or be it AR, VR, or be it machine learning. Machine learning is still going in that stage where it's still a bit young right now, right? I think crypto and machine learning go hand in hand in the age perspective, at least, right? And I feel, yeah, that's really the idea, that it's such a fundamental thing, that this is exactly what is. I mean, it is not an opinion. I feel this is kind of a fact, that because it is a young thing, it the value is in investing for its future, which will be the maturity of that thing, right?
That's
I feel that's a very good way to put it, and that's a smart thing, man.
that's a great way to think about it, right? So that's just the thing is, I don't even know a lot about cryptocurrencies right now, but
Yeah.
like knowing from the looking at the fundamentals of it, that's how you should approach it. That's what deduce. That's the conclusion that I have for cryptocurrency,
If I
right?
had a vodka shot for every time you said the word fundamentals, I
Yeah,
would
I mean,
read it
I'm
right now.
sorry. I just
I'm good.
this is like
But no,
an
see,
immature
that's
podcast, this whole thing, and terms are gonna be so repeated, and it's just gonna be so immature. But
of course.
it's
See,
just gonna grow. I hope it does. Yeah.
I think I'll point out to this. I don't know if I'll put this in the podcast or not, but I'm just thinking that I've always, both of us have always had this thing about, let's stick to the fundamentals, right? Be it your theoretical mindset that you put in, that, you research things, or be it me, that, if I want to solve a problem, then I start with the fundamentals always, and then go on to solve the problem, right? And I feel that's a thing that, that GK Dada used to say, if you know that, if you can't understand something, stick to the fundamentals, right?
Yeah.
That's his thing. And I think that's something that we've been following for a long time now, and it has become this thing where, we'd like to boil things down to 101 level, right?
Exactly. It's just because of natural intuition to understand things. Like if you can't understand something, that's the natural way we approach it, right?
Yeah, like I mean, there's this thing where, like, I don't use your word fundamentals personally. I use the word simplification. That I like to simplify things as much as possible. That I don't want to complicate things, right? And so I'll just share this small thing. I don't know again if I'll put this in the podcast, but I had an interview where I was I was given a problem. I had to solve a problem by using some kind of mathematical model or any kind of model, right? Any kind of machine learning model I would use. So I just started brainstorming, a couple of different ideas of what I could do. Maybe I could use an average, but okay, average would not work. So I'd use a weighted average, things like that. And while talking, I just started coding in front of them because it was a live coding exercise, right, for me. And I was just explaining things and I was just typing things out. And what ended up happening was I ended up making a version of the k nearest neighbors algorithm. That's it's one of the machine learning algorithms, right, that we use. I just ended up making that. And that's what I'm saying, that because if you understand the simplified version of what things are supposed to do, you know am I supposed to find an average? I need to find something that's between this data. It means I need to find an average, but an average might not work because some data points are more important than other data points. So you find a weighted average. But how do you find that weighted average? You need to automate it. So you need to find the importance on. You need the algorithm to find the importance on its own, and then you keep building, and just turns out to be a machine learning model, right?
Exactly.
And
So you just basically, that's the advantage, right? When you're going to those simplified versions, and then you're deriving things that you want to know if they are true or not. For the things that you want to understand if they are true or not, or what's how things work, if you actually derive them by yourself, you will know from the inside that it is true, and you don't need to rely on any other person's words, because you will actually know it is true. And that's the most concrete way for you to understand anything at all. Actually, create it, actually derive something. That's like
and not just understand or derive something, but actually be actually make some use of it. Essentially, that's what I'm trying to say. That if you want to understand quantum mechanics, then you can really just start with the Young's double slit experiment and just keep building on top, just like that YouTube channel did, right? But if you really want to understand what I mean, let's just say, okay, there was this paper by Google called Quantum Supremacy. I know I'm going in a completely different direction, but still, the paper by by Google called Quantum Supremacy, they basically said that they showed that quantum computing is viable. Right now, there's a lot of physics behind quantum mechanics and quantum physics, on top of which quantum computing is built. It has its own complexities, and then on top of that, they're proving quantum supremacy, basically turning all exponential problems, exponential level problems into linear level problems, right? That's really the idea. And I read that paper personally before reading the articles and the videos about it, because it was a huge thing that everybody was talking about for a week, and then it just disappeared. But because I read the paper, because I understood the basics of what a qubit is and how it works and how it fits into the system, and I know how logic gates work in normal computing, because I know these fundamentals, I could build a parallel from conventional computing to quantum computing. And then parallel helped me understand the paper in a much better way, right? So if you understand those fundamentals, I feel it's not that difficult to at least to read that paper. I'm not saying that quantum computing is easy. It's definitely not. But reading the paper about quantum supremacy and what they did and what the importance of that paper is and their research is, I guess it's easy to understand if you know your basics.
Which again, the point goes about quantum computing, right? That like we've been basically the advancement in computer generations, right? With the exponential increase in power by the by the we've basically banked up on Moore's law, right? For the processor getting smaller and smaller, right? We banked on that to make power exponentially more, just usable and more compatible with us, right?
Mhm.
So, but the thing is, now the simplest component, that is the transistors, they are on the levels of atoms now, right? We have like they are 10 atoms wide and stuff like that. Recently, IBM made a new
IBM. Mhm.
processor, right? Because
Yeah.
like it's literally in numbers of atoms. And now the thing is that everybody who's thinking about the next generation for computers, everybody who's thinking about, okay, where's the next exponential power gonna come from? Moore's law is done, man. We're done banking on that.
We're
We're
done.
down to atoms.
Yeah.
So now anybody who wants to that power, we need to talk about quantum computing, because that's the only other source we currently know of which possesses the power to give us that exponential, calculating capability.
Yeah,
So
right,
that's just
right.
one thing that. So that's one. I think quantum computing is gonna go up pretty quickly after we know that our chips are obsolete. We're done with making conventional chips more, compact.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, see, okay, there's this whole other discussion about how, you know, hardware is just one side of things. AMD just did exactly that with their Zen 2 and Zen 3 architecture, right? That's
I
why
mean,
I'm
yeah,
so passionate about AMD. And what AMD did was pure technological innovation, right? That's
exactly.
exactly what they did.
They
So
just optimized.
you'll
They just actually optimized the
yeah,
power,
they,
right? They
they optimize the software behind it. So every
exactly. Yeah,
every calculation cycle is basically an instruction that it executes, right? And
exactly. Yeah,
what they
yeah.
did is that for every instruction cycle, so there's an instruction cycle, there's an execution cycle, and there are things related to this entire. There's these things about operating systems and how hardware works and things like that. You will come to know it when
Yeah.
by the time you finish your degree. But on a very higher level, what they did was basically fit more, instructions in their execution cycle. That's
Yeah.
literally what they did. So they fit 15%. I think they had 15% more instructions in their execution cycle, and because of that, even with a lower process, that a process power that is like 4.3 or 4.7 gigahertz that everybody hears about, even with that lower execution cycle speed, the number of instructions that are executed are at level with Intel. So what happens is that with lesser execution cycles, hence lesser, read lesser energy,
Exactly. Yeah.
they can do the same amount of calculation. So that added with more number of cores than Intel just makes a better processor than Intel.
Yeah. That's just,
At
yeah.
least for
I mean,
at least the
yeah.
11th gen Intel versus 5th gen AMD. And I'm
So
going
that's just,
super detailed, but yeah,
yeah, that's just purely optimizing, right? So we
exactly.
know
It's
that on the hardware level we can go, but the thing is, we went so far and beyond in terms of the hardware prowess that we've got all these years and years left to actually optimize all this power that we've harnessed, right? It's like we have so much power, we just need more time and more like brains to actually optimize all of this stuff, right? Because we can think about competition, we can think easily say that stuff like machine learning and AI, things like that, they have come out of making a good use of such calculation prowess, right? And
mm,
that's just us finding all the applications, not just in terms of actually making the processors faster, like the way AMD did, but actually finding its applications as well, right? So we've
exactly.
dug way deeper. We've like beforehand, we've dug way deeper into the direction of physical prowess, and now we actually need to optimize, and we need to actually find really good applications for things
Agreed,
like
agreed.
this. And that's
Definitely.
just
And
how it is.
like that is the, you know, coming back to the energy debate as well. If if you've not read about this, then so okay, the laptop that I'm using right now, it's a good laptop. I mean, it has an AMD 5900 HS. It's the top of the line AMD processor right now, and it's an RTX 3060. So it's a
And
mid.
by the
Uh,
way, AMD, if you're watching this, you know what I mean. If you're watching
yeah,
this, just
probably.
hook us up. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And Nvidia, I have the RTX 3060, so that's also it's a mid to budget level GPU, right? And where I'm really getting at is that these components inside the computer take a lot, take up a lot of power. So the charger that I have is a 180 watt adapter, right?
Right.
So I have a friend who bought a lower spec version of the same laptop, and he has a 130 watt, adapter. I have a 180 watt adapter, and
Right.
even though the two components that I have, the two most power consuming components are the CPU and GPU, right? And they take most of the power, and 180 watts is not nearly enough of what they can take together, right? And so what I'm really trying to get at is, if I'm playing games, or if I'm running a machine learning model, or if I'm mining for crypto, then all of the 180 watts of power is just going into pushing electrons, right? That's the in the end, it's just lightning on a rock that we made into think faster than we can, right? It's literally what it is, right? And that's the problem with it, that comes with a heavy price on energy consumption, that all the 180 watts of electricity is being used into pushing electrons in the CPU and GPU, and of course through the motherboard and the RAM, of course. But mainly that's where the power is going, right?
And the display. I mean, display is one of the bigger places where power actually goes, are LED displays.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what I'm getting at is, almost all of that power is just radiated out as heat, and that's why we need all kinds of cooling systems, right? And that is where the problem lies, right? That we've been talking, again, we've been talking about things like transportation, we've been talking about pollution, we even talked about how meat production is leading to its own greenhouse gases and everything. But there's
Which I
another
think we're gonna,
non-obvious thing
yeah,
that we've not talked about, that we heard about these numbers back in 2015, 2013, I think, that Google had like these tons of carbon dioxide releasing like every day through their servers, and people don't understand that that is also a very real problem, that we using up a lot of a portion of our energy supply into that is electricity, into powering these machines. So these, like, there's also a lot of research to be done in this direction in technology, where power consumption needs to be brought down. And that's why there are these concepts like, we have mobile computing, we have, like, my mobile phone is able to at least, if not train machine learning models, then at least run those models
yeah,
faster than my MacBook could, right? And mobile devices have become much more power efficient that way, right? And
yeah.
it's this entire different direction of technology where you can where you can
So I would argue
think of
that,
investing.
yeah. Though I would like to argue that for like energy, at least right now, if we talk in terms of proportion, right? Like majority of the energy, yeah, in the electricity, I shouldn't say energy, but I should say electricity. Electricity actually goes into power appliances, right? Things like air conditioners, refrigerators, televisions, things like these are actually where the power goes, right? Like if we take any modern house right now, the proportion, the majority, I'm pretty sure 80 to 90% of the proportion actually goes into power appliances and then the lights, right? And if we talk about computing devices, then they are pretty much at the lowest end in terms of actually consuming power, right?
I
Maybe it's a
mean,
bit more than lights. It's just put aside to lights, but just simply because of the fact that computing devices are so freaking complicated and have been like researched so much upon and has had so much time and effort put into it, because simply because of the value it provides, right? Like think of the value that a light provides, which takes the same amount of power versus an actual freaking computing device with which you can actually talk to anybody on this earth at any given moment and like do millions of other things, right? So it's just I guess I would I would like to argue in that direction, that first we need to think about power appliances in terms of actual energy reduction, then we can think about computing machines. Because
No, I'm
computing
not talking about my. See, I'm not talking about my laptop or your PC or whatever, right? That's not what I'm getting at. It was just an example. The It's the same as saying that vehicles are responsible for pollution. I mean, they are, but so are huge industries, factories that are doing it. So I'm just going to the parallel of not our personal devices that are using a lot of energy, but the energy used by servers of Google or I don't know, Amazon or whatever, all these companies that
I
provide
mean,
services.
we're definitely gonna have to tackle in the future because of course, we're gonna have a very exponential increase in just the amount of computing devices that we're gonna have. Obviously, that's just like I hardly doubt anybody who's gonna like question against that. So it's definitely gonna be a problem in the future. But if like we from the world of computing devices, we can see what sort of problems it generates in this way, right? We can say, okay, like it actually does take up quite a huge chunk of power and we need to deal with that in the computer world. But if we actually think from the perspective of energy and electricity as a whole, right now as a species, then we know that there are quite a lot of other areas where we need more improvement, where improvement is easy and it's just gonna help towards more energy reduction because that's the majority proportion where the energy actually goes as well. So there, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, fair. I do agree with that. But yeah, I think that's a good enough wrap into our entire discussion. We started with climate change, and we went to our main topic of investing. And then we went to all these discussions. I guess if we keep making podcasts, I guess that's another disclaimer that we'll probably have a title on the podcast, but we will not talk about that title.
Yeah.
Is it
The tangents are the main portion of the podcast, and the actual topics are just like something with
when our discussions really about a single topic. I mean, if they are about a single topic in your life, you need to think about something, bro. You need to
pretty much, yeah. That's a problem there. That's a
yeah. But yeah, I think that's it from
my end. I just would like to end by saying that I just think we're just starting right now, and there must be a lot of immaturity in terms of talking, the way we use our words as well, and also just the simple amount of fact checking because we're just doing making a conversation. We can't say 100% sure of everything that we've said, right? There might be tons of factual errors in there. Just think of it as another conversation you were having with friends that are a bit more nerdier than usual, I guess. But
yeah. Or we could do a bit more research and get our notes together. So that's also another thing. But yeah, I like how you're the younger guy and you want to talk about how immature our podcast is gonna be. But yeah,
let's just blame the consumers for the fact checking.
Of course, I mean, dude, come on. We tried our best. You don't understand. You're supposed to read. Come on.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Then I'm just gonna hit stop recording, and I'll see you now.
We'll see you in next podcast, I guess. Then.
Perfect.
Bye.
Ta-da.